Hello everyone, my name is Annie Wang and I'm one of the co-founders of hercampus.com. Tonight I'm so excited to welcome you to College Confessionals, which is our live webcast with real college students answering all of your questions about applying to college and finding the right school for you, picking a major, and all that good stuff that comes after you actually matriculate on campus. So today we're going to cover all of these topics, and our panelists today come from couple different schools. So today we have Lindsay with us. Lindsay is a second-year communications student at UCLA, but she's originally from Portland, Oregon. She's a campus correspondent for Her Campus UCLA, works for the school newspaper, and is the treasurer of her multi-interest sorority. Lindsay studied abroad in Paris this summer. Welcome, Lindsay. We also have Aubrey. Aubrey is a native Californian at Harvard College. She's a junior involved with Her Campus, the Institute of Politics, and women's empowerment initiatives on Harvard's campus. And lastly, we have Zoe. Zoe Burgard is a senior at Harvard University studying English, French, and classics. She likes studying abroad and learning new languages and hopes to one day be an editor. Welcome, Zoe and Aubrey from Harvard.
Hi.
Awesome. So the way that this is going to work today is I've prepared a list of questions that I'm going to ask our panelists, again, ranging from the application process to getting on campus and, student life and all that. But we also have an opportunity for you as audience members to submit your questions and let us know what you're curious about. So go ahead and use the blue Q&A tab, which should be on the right side of your screen, and go ahead and submit your questions. You'll see that there's a bunch of questions there already, so you can certainly do a little +1 to upvote the questions that you're interested in as well. And at the end of our prepared questions, we'll go ahead and dive into the audience-submitted questions. And today I also wanted to thank our sponsor, McDonald's, who made this whole thing possible. So this is actually the second year in a row that we've worked with McDonald's on putting together the College Confessionals webcast series. And we're really excited to continue partnering with them on this super important issue of education. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with Lindsay. So the first question is for you. Lindsay, when did you start researching colleges, visiting campuses, and or submitting applications?
I'd say for me, it probably started my sophomore year because I had a friend who was a senior in high school, and I kind of was watching her as she applied and where she was going. But mine kind of started my junior year as I was researching on my own. During the spring break of my junior year, I went to the East Coast, like New York, to look at schools there because I wanted to feel what the campus was like. And then after the summer, after my junior year of high school, that was when I was writing my essays and trying to do the Common App. And all of it's due in the fall of your senior year. So that's really when it's in the most high gear if you haven't finished it already.
Yeah, absolutely, Lindsay. I think that I began my process a little bit late. I don't think I started my applications or thinking about essays until the summer before my senior year, but I really started thinking about college probably freshman, sophomore year as well. That's when you have to start getting your goals ready so you know what you want to do and you can make sure that you're filling the requirements of the schools that you're thinking about applying to.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question on essays, this one's for you, Zoe. What tips do you have for writing winning college essays? And I know this is a topic a lot of our audience members are curious about as well.
Absolutely. I think the two things that are most important about your college essays are picking topics that really matter to you. I think it would be a mistake to write about something that you think that college admissions readers want to read, because then everyone's thinking about those things and you don't really stand out. So try and think about an experience that really defined you and that you think really applies to the kind of student you'll be in college. So I wrote mine about a learning experience I had when I was younger that I think applied to the kind of student I would then be at college. So that's how I chose what to write about. And then the most important thing that I found is finding people to read it, whether it's parents or teachers, who really know your voice and can tell you if that's coming across in your essays. And I think those are the two best things you can do for that.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree that you shouldn't choose a topic based on what you think they want to hear. I know people either think that something's overdone or something's underdone and they should do it, but you should just do what you're most passionate about. I did something about the beach because I really like the beach and it kind of relates to my life philosophy, but they don't need you to describe something that's already on your resume. It's just whatever you enjoy the most and why you enjoy it, really.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you for weighing in. Next question's back to you, Lindsay, about recommendations. Who are some of the best types of people to ask for college recommendations?
I would definitely say most of the recommendations should be those like academic, like core teachers, like English, math, or science, because they want to make sure that you're excelling in those topics. So I think that usually it's like two of those kinds of teachers who know you as a student, but also you should choose teachers who know you more personally as well. Like maybe you're an advisor to a club or someone that you stay after school with and have worked with on an extra project, or someone that knows you beyond just, oh, that girl who raises her hand a lot in class. That they can see your grades, so they don't need them to tell you about the grades. It's more also about your personality and how hard you work. But that said, you can still do like a coach, or I did like a director of a musical, someone who also knows you outside the classroom, maybe one of those.
I'd like to give 2 tips also on recommendations. First thing I would say is to make sure that you're getting teachers probably from your junior year, because those are the people that know you best at that time, and they've known you for a full year. The second thing I would say is to give all of your recommenders brag sheets that list your accomplishments, because they may not know how awesome you are. You need to actually tell them. And they won't take it badly. They'd like to know more about you and more about your extracurriculars, so they can really speak to who you are as a person.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Aubrey, and that's something that people continue to do after they're already in college and looking for internships. So it's super helpful for me as a supervisor to know, oh, these were the projects that my intern was working on. These were what she thought were her biggest accomplishments, so then I could write a really personalized and strong recommendation. So definitely good tips all around. Cool. Let's move on to the topic of standardized testing. So Aubrey, this one's for you. What is your take on the SAT versus the ACT?
It's a great question. So I actually took both tests before I applied. And what's funny is I did one of those score conversions after the fact, and it turns out I got the same score on the SAT and the ACT. I think that the SAT is probably very good for people who are interested in English and writing, because your essay is such a big component of your score in your SAT. As the ACT has a science section and it has a math section. And so I think that if you are more interested in math and science, probably take the ACT to play to your strengths. But I will say, as I said, I got the same score on both, and I consider myself more of an English and writing-centered person. So don't be afraid to take both tests and see which one matches your strengths more.
I would definitely agree with that. I also took both, and I think for me the biggest thing was that I agree that there is sort of this preconception that if you're better at English or better at science, you should take one or the other, but I found what changed for me the most was that the timing on the ACT is really different. The way that you have to pace yourself is completely different. So I found in taking that even though I'm more of an English person and there was science on there, which I was a little bit nervous about, I felt a lot more comfortable with the pacing of the test, and that's ultimately what helped me succeed. So I think it's important to know what kind of learner you are when deciding which test to take.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you. Cool. Next question is about applying to schools. Lindsay, how many schools do you recommend students apply to?
I actually applied to way too many because I just couldn't decide where I wanted to go to school or what kind of school, like private, public, big or small. But I definitely wish I had it and just spent a lot of time. Although you can kind of use similar, information on different applications, it just took a lot more time than was necessary. And then in the end, after I received my decision letters, it just made the decision difficult because I hadn't narrowed it down earlier. So I'd recommend maybe 5 or 6 with having, a safety, a reach, some match schools. Just have a little bit of a variety, but not too much where you're just putting the work of deciding on your future self, maybe.
So
that's such a great tip. Go ahead, Zoe.
Oh, sorry. I think what I love to tell people after my experience and what I'm excited to share now is that I think the best thing you can do for yourself in applying to colleges is to find a safety school that you love. So when I was applying to schools, my favorite school was actually my safety school. And having that meant that I actually didn't have to consider that many colleges because I knew that I had found this place where it was pretty likely that I would get in, and I just felt so comfortable there and I was so happy, and I think that makes the entire decision process so much easier because then you can really, if you have that, then you can go through the process of only applying to schools you really care about, whether that's a small number. So I think that's really the best way to go about it, if you could do it.
I totally agree with that, Zoe. I think I also applied to way too many schools. but I was very happy that I had options at the end. I applied to a few that were really close to home and a few that were a little bit further away, and that gave me the choice once I was a little bit older, towards the end of my senior year, to really figure out what it was that I wanted.
Those are all great tips. Thank you for sharing. Zoe, I love that tip about just finding a really great safety school that you love. I hadn't heard that one before, but it makes a lot of sense. Awesome. So let's move on to the topic of college visits. And Aubrey, the next two questions are going to be for you.
Okay.
How beneficial did you find college visits? And then what are some good questions to ask when you're actually on the visit?
Great questions. So first question about visiting. I actually never visited Harvard before I decided to attend, which definitely I think put me at a disadvantage. Once I got here as a freshman, I had no idea what the culture was like. I had no idea what the environment was going to be like. And so I definitely recommend that if you have the opportunity, check out a few schools once you get accepted to really see what the culture is like and if you'll fit in there. But the schools that I did visit, I really felt that it was very good to visit after I got accepted, I think, because then you have this sense of comfort already and you can really see how you fit in. As far as questions go to ask on when you're at a school that you have either been accepted to or are thinking about, I'm actually a tour guide. This is a great question. I would definitely ask students that attend what they spend their free time doing, what they think their favorite part about the school is, and how they like their classes. I think that these are questions that will generate not generic answers. When you ask about what people do in their free time, it's a very good way to gauge whether or not they actually have free time. So I think that there are certain schools you can go to where people are like, oh, free time, what's that? I think at Harvard, though, you'll find that a lot of people have amazing clubs that they're interested in and things that they do on campus. As far as asking about what their favorite thing is about the school, it's a great way to tell people like their classmates, because the good answer you want to hear is that they love the people. That's what you really want to hear when you visit a school, because then you know that people are enjoying their classmates, that they're really getting a lot out of their peers. And the final question about classes, that's a great way to see how large classroom sizes will be, if people are able to get the classes that they want, and how easy it is to find classes that you'll love. So those are my three questions that I would recommend asking.
Great questions. Any other thoughts? Did anybody else have any great questions that they asked on their visits?
I mean, I think Aubrey covered the idea of questions to ask. I would say for visits that it's really important to visit, especially schools where you just really heard about them. So I think obviously it worked out great for Aubrey because we're all happy she's here. But I remember there were a couple schools that I was really excited about, basically just based on reputation, and then I went and I immediately felt like really uncomfortable there, and it was such a gut feeling that I wasn't prepared for. So I think it's really important to imagine yourself on a campus before you apply and after you apply.
Great.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, Lindsay, did you have something?
No, I agree. I visited two schools that were in around the same area in Los Angeles. There's a lot of schools in LA, but I visited two, and visiting them just kind of helped me know, like you said, how I would fit on the campus, what the climate is like, and whether I would kind of feel like I belong with the students.
All very important things. Awesome. Okay, so I just wanted to remind viewers to submit questions via the Q&A panel on the right if you're just joining us. And also, this entire webcast is actually going to be recorded and available on YouTube afterwards, so don't feel like you need to take notes or anything during this webcast. You can definitely refer to it afterwards and share with your friends. It will be a very valuable resource, I hope, as you guys are thinking about applying to colleges. And also, McDonald's offers very similar services as well in the form of education workshops that actually provide essential information about the college admissions process, scholarships, financial aid, and just generally the benefits of higher education. So if you want to learn more, you can check out their website at myinspirasian.com. That's myinspirasian.com for more information about workshops that might be coming to your area. So yes, they do actually tour around the country, and I was part of that tour a couple years ago. Really fun. Awesome. Okay, so let's continue. And Lindsay, the next question will go to you. So location is actually a big factor to consider in deciding what school is best for you. What drew you to UCLA, which is 1,000 miles away from your house. And how has your college experience been affected by attending a school so far from home?
Well, I really just knew I wanted to try a new place for college. Like, I figured if I was going to be spending thousands of dollars, like either way, that I didn't want to go somewhere too close to home. I wanted to kind of like put myself out of my comfort zone a little bit. I had family in California, so it was like that kind of a balance of not too far away, like across the country or anything, but it was still somewhere new that I wanted to experience. It definitely does affect my experience here because I can't, go home on like 3-day weekends or even regular weekends when a lot of my friends do. So that it's kind of sad at times, but I also feel like it makes me like grow a lot more. And because once you're out of college, you're not going to be able to go home all the time anyway. So it's kind of that good stepping stone for me between living at home and then having like a job and an apartment after college. It's like you're on campus, but I'm still far away, and I get to experience a new city with a new culture.
I actually would like to weigh in too also, because I think I'm the only person on the panel who's a local college student. So I grew up 5 miles away from Harvard. I went to high school in Cambridge, and Harvard was actually the only place that I looked to that was this close to home. I was looking at the East Coast, but this was the only place that was really close. And I think I was really worried about staying close to home. And sometimes, yeah, I feel like I'm like not really as far out of my comfort zone as I could be, but I do think that there's something about experiencing a place at different stages in your life as you're growing up that makes it really different. So, for example, at my high school, a lot of people would hang out in Harvard Square and things like that, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be so bored when I'm in college there and just going to the same places, but you just get to experience it in a totally different way, and it's nice to have a little familiarity, and it's not as similar as you think it's going to be. So I think either way, you can't really make the wrong decision.
Yeah, it's whatever you want to do. Like, I know so many people that stay close to home and they love it, and some people who went really far and love it or move, transferring back. It's whatever you want to try.
Yeah.
For sure, and I would definitely agree with Zoe too, how a city really changes for you. So I went to Harvard as well, and I've been in Boston ever since, and my experience of this city now is so much different from when I was here as a student. So another thing you can consider when you're thinking about location is whether that's in a city that you can picture yourself living in after graduation. So not everybody will do that, obviously, but it is something that might happen. A lot of people do end up staying in that city. And so if you really fall in love with it, that could be a really good reason for you to go to that school as well. Awesome. So next question, switching into academics. So Zoe, this one's for you. What are the pros and cons of choosing a school with extreme academic rigor like Harvard?
So I think I want to start off by saying that it's not as intimidating as you think it's going to be. So this is the main question that I get from non-Harvard students when I travel or anything else. They're like, oh, it must be impossible, like it's so stressful. And I'm like, really, when you get to any school, it's just a school. That being said, Harvard does have a high academic rigor, and I think the biggest pro is being surrounded by people who are as excited to be challenged as you are. So that's, I think, the best thing for me is that every time I'm in a class or talking to anyone, everyone's excited about what they're doing. Everyone wants to succeed. They're pushing each other. Like, it's an incredible atmosphere. It makes for a lot of intellectual and academic growth on your own part, and it's also just exciting to see your friends and loved ones also growing in that way. It also means that you get to sort of expand your mind in a way you wouldn't be able to in high school. So, like for my thesis, the people I'm working on my thesis with are just brilliant minds, and getting to be at a school that has access to them and talk to them and learn from them is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I would say the cons are both serious but can both also be dealt with, by which I mean that I think the biggest cons are stress and not being able to manage your time well, and I think those shouldn't be taken lightly, but I think there's absolutely ways to manage them and manage your stress and learn to manage your time. And so I think that while I would call those stereotypical cons, I think there are actually pros because they make you grow up in a way that a high school or any other thing like that wouldn't really make you grow up in that way. Learning to deal with your stress is an important part of being an adult, and I think it's something you learn really well at a school like Harvard.
I totally agree with you, Zoe. And I want to say I completely agree with the benefits of going to a very rigorous school. It definitely improves your mind, and it makes you have this appreciation for those around you. I will say, I think I had an existential crisis my freshman year where I was like, oh my gosh, everyone is so much smarter than me. I have no idea what's going on. And so it is okay to get insecure at times, but you will overcome. You will say something
absolutely.
in the discussion. You'll be like, "Oh my gosh, was that me?" Like, but so it's true. So don't be scared. Be excited. Be excited.
Yes.
Love that attitude. Excellent. Okay, so the next question is for you, Aubrey. How do college classes compare to high school classes in difficulty and workload? What tips do you have for making this academic transition?
Okay, so differences between high school and college. One thing I love is at the beginning of a college semester, you get a list of every single homework assignment and test you'll ever have. You know the date, you know exactly what you need to do. So it's much easier to manage, I think, than it is in high school because you know exactly what needs to be done every single week. I think that there's a lot less time in class in college. Each of my classes is only 2 to 3 hours of class per week. That just means that you're doing a lot more individually outside of the classroom, which I personally like because I get to tailor how I learn to my own individual style and what strengths are for me. So, I mean, I'm better at visual and I'm better at taking notes by hand, whereas some people might be better at looking at things and watching videos and taking notes on a computer. So college, I think, is much more individualized, which makes it both easier and harder because you have to hold yourself accountable to doing the things you have to do in order to succeed. I don't think that college classes are significantly harder than any AP course I took. I think that there's this misconception that college will be so much harder. It's not. It's just a different way of going about readings, going about papers, and you kind of learn and you work your way through it. So I wouldn't be too nervous about a college class versus a high school class.
I would absolutely agree that there's something to be said about a difference rather than a sort of black and white, harder, easier. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest difference for me in a college experience is that you're given more freedom to explore your own ideas. So if you're in a high school class and you learn about an author, you write a paper on that author based on a prompt given to you by your teacher, and then that's over, and you move on to the next book. Whereas classes I took my freshman year, I would read something about an author, and I'd be like, oh, this weird specific thing really interests me, and I would go off and do all my independent work on that and meet with my professor and talk about that. And like ideas like that is what turned into my senior thesis that I'm writing right now. And so I think there's a lot more opportunity for personal growth and development and exploration in a college class, which can feel more difficult at first, but is good in the long run.
I definitely think if you're taking an AP class, you can handle the workload of college, but it is, just like Aubrey said, more individualized. You just have to know how to manage your time so that when you get back from class, you're not just like procrastinating. You do have to kind of keep up on that because you do have those deadlines, and I know it's hard, but you know, it's just a different way. You don't have a teacher like behind your back all the time explaining things and reminding you. You kind of have to keep on top of it yourself.
Oh, exactly. So if you miss a homework assignment, if you miss turning in that essay, there's not a teacher that's like hunting you down the hall and saying, hey, turn that in. Like, you're just going to get a 0 on it. So it's definitely much more up to you. Awesome. Thank you guys for weighing in on that question. Definitely a hot topic for these high school students. Cool. Next, let's go to Lindsay. This question about staying active on campus. So it can be really hard to find time to stay fit in college since you have such a busy schedule. How do you find time to work out even after a really long and tiring day?
Well, first of all, at UCLA, walking up the hills themselves, they're a workout, but no. But the gyms, honestly, I'd recommend if you want to work out to do it before class, because by the time you get done, you're just like tired, you have homework, you have all this stuff on your mind. So I think that if being fit is important to you, and it should, and like a healthy lifestyle, that you wake up like an hour or two before class, you go to the gym, you take a shower, and then go to class, and then you can kind of wind down from there after your classes. And usually working out, you know, kind of gets you alert and awake and prepared for class in my experience.
I totally agree with you, Lindsay. I think there's something to be said for that kind of deliriousness that you have when you first wake up and you just kind of go to the gym and then you're already working out before you realize like what you're doing. It's great. It's perfect because when you think about it too much, you're going to talk yourself out of it. So I like just waking up and doing it.
I also...
Go ahead, Zoe.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought you were done. I was just going to say, I hate gyms and like can't do gyms and can't do any of that. So I think there are a lot of other alternatives at college. So Harvard has varsity, obviously, but it also has club teams and like intramural teams And I think if you are having trouble motivating yourself, find something that feels more like fun than like exercise. And that's sort of the easiest way to get that in.
Definitely. Great. All right, moving on. Let's talk about financial aid briefly. So Zoe, college can be really expensive. How did you decide how to pay for it?
So I think the most important thing when you're deciding how to pay for college is to really familiarize yourself with the financial aid policies of the school you go to, because every school is different. Harvard is completely need blind. A lot of schools are following suit, but you just need to be aware.
What does need blind mean, Zoe?
Okay, need blind means that when you apply, they will accept you regardless of your financial situation. So they're not worried about finding a spot for you and like having to pay for you or anything like that. That just is not a part of it. It's just if you belong at the school, they will make sure that you can attend the school. So a lot of schools are following suit, which is really amazing. But I think the best thing you can do is just familiarize yourself with the policies. So for example, I know that Harvard doesn't have any sort of student loans, and they have interest-free loans for your parents and things like that, and it's supposed to take a lot of the pressure off the student. There's also opportunities to be a work-study student where you get an on-campus job. And I think the world of college financial aid is really changing for the better. And I think I would just recommend that you don't let money get in the way of where you think you can apply, because chances are that if you belong at an amazing school that happens to be really expensive, they're going to help you figure out how to attend. So.
Great. And as a quick aside, and just a reminder for viewers to submit their questions using the Q&A panel. I see a lot of activity there, so really exciting. We'll definitely have time to get to those questions. But one thing you might not know about our sponsor, McDonald's, is that actually since 1985, they've awarded more than $52 million in scholarships through the Ronald McDonald House Charities, which award 4 different scholarships based on academic achievement, financial need, community involvement, and more. So that is definitely an option for you as well if you're seeking scholarships or other financial aid to help you pay for college. And feel free to just Google that and look up more information about the Ronald McDonald House Charities, or the RMHC scholarships. And I know that the deadline, or high school students can start applying October 1st, so that is coming up right around the corner. Definitely check that out as an option that is available to you. A lot of money in that charity. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on. The next question is also for Zoe about study abroad. Okay. So what should students consider when deciding if they want to study abroad?
So I'm going to preface this by saying that I have studied abroad a lot. I went to Paris the summer after my freshman year, Italy the summer after my sophomore year, and then I was working in Munich this past summer. I think the first decision you have to make about studying abroad is whether you want to go abroad during the school year or during the summer. So for me, I love being at Harvard. I don't want to waste one of my semesters where I can be in Cambridge, so I only studied abroad in the summer. So I think that's really the first thing you have to ask yourself. I think there are benefits to both. I think there is something to be said for spending a longer amount of time there when you go abroad for an entire semester as opposed to a summer, but I think you just have to really know yourself and know whether you're more comfortable going during the school year or going in the summer. Then the other thing is just to pick a place that's going to challenge you and excite you. Do your research. I mean, when I went to Italy, I wanted to learn Italian, so I looked for places that were not Florence or places where they spoke a lot of English, and found this like tiny town in the north of Italy called Genoa where no one speaks any English, and just went and learned Italian and then came back. And so I think if you're doing it, you just have to get excited about it. So think about the languages you've taken, and then the other thing you can do. Sorry, I have so many thoughts on studying abroad. I'm trying to keep it short.
No, that's great.
I think the biggest thing is that if you say you studied Spanish for all of high school, and then you get to college and you're like, I really want to study abroad in Paris, but I don't know any French. That means that your freshman fall, you should just start taking intensive French so that you can be ready to go abroad as soon as possible. Also know that most schools, I know Harvard does this, I'm sure other schools do as well, offer like 1 and 2 semester-long classes that are intensive enough to get you ready within 1 or 2 semesters to go abroad. So I think the most important thing is to sort of inform yourself what language background you'll need, what scholarships are available to help you go abroad, and things like that. And just pick a place that's exciting because you're in college and you should have this amazing experience at least once.
Yeah,
I would even say that you don't even... Oh, sorry. We all have so much to say about it. Go ahead.
So I spent this past summer in Israel doing an internship, and I'll be studying abroad next semester. And
I didn't know that.
I'm very excited. So next semester, I'll be getting credit through an outside program. And I think what really prompted me to do that was, well, first of all, I wanted to study abroad since I was a little kid. And when I got to Harvard and realized how amazing it was to be here during the semester, it was hard to kind of pull true to that promise made to my 8-year-old self. But I decided that I thought it was very important for me. Plus, if financial restrictions kind of hold you back from traveling a lot during breaks, studying abroad is a great way to get around that because you're paying for a semester while you're abroad. And so you get to travel, but you're paying the same amount as you would be if you were in class back at school. So I think that's also a really cool thing to consider. Plus, there are so many study abroad scholarships online. If you look, people really are excited about you leaving the country. Like, you know, they really want to get that experience. And so I think that a really cool thing about studying abroad is it's very financially feasible.
Going back to what Zoe said about learning the language before, so I went to Paris this summer and I'd never taken a French class, and although I do think that would have, you know, of course helped me speak to people more, I didn't find that it was like necessary. So if you guys are worried about that, I mean, it's always good if you can do that, but for me it didn't fit into my schedule, and I just wanted to go and learn about the French culture. So it's still possible even if you aren't like fluent in the language. Still a good experience.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lots of love for study abroad. I didn't do it myself, and I feel like I missed out. All right. So, Zoe, this next question is for you as well. What was your freshman orientation experience like? How did your school prepare you for college life, and was it similar or different from what you expected?
So I'm actually really excited to answer this question because Harvard offers 3 orientation programs, and I didn't do any of them. So I did the route because I think, so, okay, let me backtrack. Harvard, among other schools, offer a lot of orientation programs to get you ready for college. So they are usually focused on an activity you like. So Harvard, for example, has an arts program, an outdoor program, one for sort of more people who are interested in social justice. They have all these things that prepare you for school in a very specific way. So I decided not to do one, and I just came for the regular orientation week. And I have to say that there are pros and cons to both. So I think there's definitely something to be said for like already knowing people during regular orientation week. But if you can't do those because of constraints, I was abroad and wasn't able to make it, things like that, you can still, orientation programs are great, but there's always time at the beginning of the school year to orient yourself. It's not like if you don't go to an orientation program that you have to go to class the first day you move into campus. I think the best thing you can do during an orientation program is just to be really excited to meet people. I'm naturally pretty shy, and so it was really hard for me, but I think if you just sort of be like, no one knows me, I can say whatever I want, you just go up to people and you're really excited, and the thing is everyone's like nervous and excited and also doesn't want to be standing alone. So just, I would say, as best you can, use your orientation program to just go out there and meet people. If you're not doing a specific one, especially, because like a couple people might already know each other, but don't let that deter you. They know each other for a week. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? All right. Okay, so next, let's talk about extracurriculars, which is so important in college. Aubrey, this one's for you. How did joining extracurricular activities help you meet new people, and what advice do you have for someone who is looking to get involved on campus?
Great. So there's this really funny phenomenon at Harvard, and I'm sure at every other school, where freshmen decide to join like 10 different clubs that they think are really going to be so fun and so amazing, and then they end up either feeling so overwhelmed that they get behind on all their schoolwork, or they are so overwhelmed that they don't go to any of them. I ended up joining, I think, 2 or 3 clubs my freshman year, which actually helped a lot. One of them was her campus, which was amazing. Obviously, I'm a junior now, and yeah. And that's actually introduced me to some of my closest friends. I think that an important thing when you're joining clubs and organizations, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you don't have to join an organization that has to do with the person you want to be, even if that's great. Join organizations that speak to who you already are, because you're going to meet people that are interested in what you're interested in. So I thought about joining the debate team at Harvard because I thought that sounded so prestigious and so cool. And then I was like, wait a second, I don't know anything about debate. Do I even want to debate? And so I'm glad I didn't, because I would have met people that I might not have had the same interest as. But there definitely is something to be said for challenging yourself. I joined a political group that first semester, and even though I didn't know much about politics, I knew that I was interested in it, and it challenged me to learn new things, and I met people who could teach me because they were so experienced already. So I think those are some really good things to remember.
At UCLA, we have a giant activities fair. It was actually yesterday for us, where there's just a ton of clubs, and people are giving out flyers and trying to get you to join their clubs. And definitely a lot of people do join 10 clubs at the beginning. I don't know about 10, but I would probably recommend that people join a lot because you don't really know who you're going to meet in those clubs. And just at the beginning, it's always good to kind of try some different things, and you might find a place that you didn't expect to like, but now you do, or it's a new hobby that wasn't at your high school that they have in college. But at a big school like UCLA or any other big school, and even small schools, but especially I've noticed at big schools, it's good to join clubs so you can meet people that way because classes are big and the campus is just so big that it's a good way to find your little niches.
I would say also that I joined clubs my freshman year, but the two things I'm involved with now, which are Her Campus and doing makeup for theater productions, are things that I didn't find until I was a sophomore. And I think that the main thing I can say is no matter how many clubs you join freshman year, if one of them doesn't work out or you're not happy, don't think that you have to stay in them or else you won't ever be in another club and you'll never meet anyone new. You just might need more time to figure out who you are and what you really want. So I think do what you want freshman year, but don't lock yourself into that and think you have to stay, or if you haven't joined any clubs yet that it's too late and they only want freshmen or anything like that. Just do things in your own time.
Great. Awesome. All right, so next question is about campus culture. Zoe, this one's for you. What is your campus culture like? Is it what you expected it would be, and how has it helped or hindered your academic success and the ability to meet new people? So lots of questions.
Lots of questions, but I think they're important. I think Harvard campus culture is a little bit difficult to describe right now because it's really changing every day even, but I think Harvard campus culture is very different than other schools. We have great sports teams, but no one ever goes to watch them. There's one good, we all go to Harvard Yale, and I don't know about anyone else, but that's the only sporting event I've ever been to. So I have friends who visit from other schools who are like, don't you guys have a football game this weekend? And I'm like, is it the football season? No, I don't know.
That's not at UCLA.
So I think that's a big thing about Harvard. Athletics are not a big part of campus social life. So the one thing that I love about our campus culture that is not present at a lot of other schools is that I think something like 98 or 99% of people live on campus. And everyone who lives on campus has a living room or some sort of space in their room or near their room where they can host people. And so I think that means that unlike at other schools, there's so much happening in small, fun groups where you can, it's really casual and it's really relaxed and you can meet new people that your friends bring in, things like that, and it's not all huge parties. I prefer that. I don't know if everyone prefer that, but that's what the Harvard campus culture I think is really like, and I love it. I think in terms of both, I think I can answer the questions how it helped and hindered my academic success and how it helps me meet new people with the same answer, which is basically that it means that I spend a lot of times with my close group of friends just hanging out and listening to music and doing things like that. And so I think at other schools, which are more party schools, it's pretty normal to just not do anything during the week and then go really all out on the weekends. Where I think at a place like Harvard, it's more just a little bit every night of the week, which is nice, but it also means that it's sort of hard. On a Wednesday when all your friends are let's go to a concert, let's do this thing, and you're I have class tomorrow. So that's something to get used to, and it also makes it a little bit harder to meet new people because you have your nice living room with all your friends in it, and you're why would I go anywhere else? So I think
Netflix.
Exactly. So I think it's really important to just, when you're at any school, that's Harvard, but I think at any school you're at, I think you need two things. I think you need to figure out what you're comfortable with so you have a place you're comfortable, and then also push yourself to leave that space every now and again. So that's what I would say about campus culture.
I think that my expectations of Harvard were definitely different, probably because I also didn't visit. So, and I'd never really been on the East Coast, so my vision of Harvard was kind of this weird mesh of Legally Blonde and The Social Network. I just thought that's exactly what it would be like. but I found that people here are much more down to earth than I ever imagined, and that people are much more willing to engage than I ever imagined. It's not really as competitive as I thought. People are much more willing to work with one another and to meet new people. It's hard to meet new people because, as you said, you get kind of comfortable, but you definitely meet more new people than I would have imagined, so that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are actually on our last 2 questions before we go into the audience submitted questions. So get those questions in and upvote the ones that you're interested in, and we'll definitely get to those in just a couple minutes. So the last 2 questions are actually for you, Lindsay, about campus life and a kind of a day in the life. So what advice do you have for someone who wants to live on campus, and how does the housing experience change after freshman year?
So for the day in the life, sorry, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
For a day in the life, I just say, sorry?
Oh, sorry, Lindsay. I keep on cutting you off. The first question is just about advice for somebody who wants to live on campus, and then how does the housing experience change after freshman year, and then after that we'll go into the day in the life question.
Okay, so, for living on campus,
Yeah.
I would say for right now, so I'm in my 2nd year, and I've lived on campus both my 1st year and 2nd year. I really like it because, you know, you have your friends that are close by. You can have, like, floor meetings with and meet roommates, and it's a good way to meet new people. It's nice to have a meal plan. You don't have to cook, but I know for UCLA, living off campus, it's something that 3rd or 4th years might do, maybe probably especially most 4th years, I would say. It's a good way to motivate yourself maybe to explore off campus because, you know, you're in like Los Angeles and there's a lot of things to do that require a car, or you can go try restaurants, whereas being on campus, you don't really have that same motivation when all your friends are nearby and you have this meal plan. As for the day in the life, I think that would probably depend a lot on what college you choose and what classes you have, but for me, I'd say maybe my classes might start at like 9 or 10 in the morning, so I'd get up, shower, walk to class, which is like about a mile up the hill for me, because I live on campus.
Can't imagine.
I know. And I'd go to class, finish my classes, you know, like go to lectures, and then, you know, go to like a club meeting maybe or something like that. And in the movie. On weekends, you work on your talk with your friend, you go to the beach. Depends a lot on your setting, I would say.
Any of the Harvard girls want to jump in with a day in the life?
Sure. I think something to get used to after high school, especially if you're at Harvard, if you're in the humanities, a lot of your classes meet once a week for 2 hours in the afternoon, which is something I wasn't really used to, which I love now. So I think a day in the life for me is really, my classes don't start until 10 or 11, and so I'm in class, and then I meet my friends for lunch, and then I spend most of my days in class, and then evenings I usually spend in the library until like 10 or 11 or something like that, and then I usually, like I said earlier, Harvard really is nice about having like small social settings like during the week, so doing something in the evenings like that. So I think it's sort of a big day. I think it's misleading when you think about the fact that your classes meet much less frequently in college, because the thing is, like, you're in class for not that long, but then you have meetings and like you have to like finish this thing and talk about a project and all these things. And so I think I really think of it like, oh, I have a work day that is my school day, the same as when I was in high school, but just with a different rhythm because classes are shorter or longer and things like that.
Absolutely. And I think one interesting thing about Harvard as in terms of living on campus or off campus, so as Zoe said, 97, 98% of students live on campus all 4 years. An interesting thing about Harvard that I think contributes to that is there's no sorority or fraternity housing, which means that even though we have social organizations, people don't actually live with the people in their social organizations off campus, which can contribute to, you know, in-dorm parties a lot more, because that's where a lot of social activity takes place, is in your common room in your living room.
Great. Okay, so I want to make sure that we reserve the rest of the time for the audience questions because we have so many. So I'm going to be selecting from the questions that have been submitted, and we'll hopefully go answer some of the ones that have the most upvotes. So the first one that I see that has a ton of upvotes is this one about college admission, so I'm going to go ahead and select it. But I know as a caveat right off the bat that you guys as students might not know the answer to this because you're not admissions officers, but the question is, do college admissions really compare students with students from their own school in terms of class rank, AP courses, school is able to offer, etc.? If there are so many students that apply every year, what do they actually look at and consider the most? Does anybody have any insights on this?
I would first start off by saying that I think those are two different questions, even though they don't seem like it at first. I think in terms of the first one, you have to trust that admissions officers know about your school, which is to say, if you're worried that they might look at your GPA and not realize that you go to a really academically rigorous school, and that's why you might have a slightly lower GPA than some of your peers, or if they look and they don't realize that your school doesn't offer opportunities and that's why you couldn't take more AP classes and things like that, they are aware of that. So I think that's important. I think I remember this terrible thing that people used to say to me on college visits where they would be like, oh, admissions officers spend like 30 seconds on your application and like don't pay attention. And like people used to say that to me all the time. It's so stressful. And now talking to people who are like student admissions officers at Harvard, the two things you have to know is that first of all, these people are trained to skim. They know what they're doing. They're not just like random people who get a piece of paper for 30 seconds. They know what they're doing. I think in terms of standing out, just make sure that your voice comes through. This is what I say with the first question of the essays. You want people to read your application and get a feel for you. They know how your school works. They'll have an idea of what opportunities are like in your region because they do things by region. And then from there on, they'll just see you in your application. That's the most important thing. So you won't be overlooked.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to just have one person answer each question so that we can get through more.
Okay.
So the next one is about college essays. What is the most important element to a college essay? The story, voice, word choice, life story, a few but important words to describe your personality? Aubrey, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, I love this question. It's one of my favorite ones to answer. So I think that the most important thing about a college essay is that it is you. That it not just that you're the one writing it, but that you're presenting who you are through that essay. And there are two sides to this. One, college admissions officers, at least at Harvard, read over 30,000 applications a year. They are very experienced in knowing when somebody is kind of faking it, and they're going to read multiple applications that have the same exact essay because people think that's what they want to hear. So I think that it's very important that you're portraying who you are so that you stand out because you are an individual, you are unique, and if you actually are speaking to who you are, that's going to come across. Second reason that speaking as you is important. You don't want to go to a school that accepts you because you sounded like someone else. My favorite thing is that you are not going to be admitted to a school that doesn't want you, and you don't want to be admitted to a school that doesn't want you. So if you're writing in your voice and you're writing as who you are, the right schools are going to find you, and I think that's the most important thing of all.
Awesome. Okay, next question is about standing out with regards to a slightly lower GPA. So I'm worried that my GPA isn't high enough. Are there other things I can do that will make me stand out more so my GPA seems pale in comparison? Lindsay, you want to take this one?
Yeah, definitely. I think that GPA is just one factor that they consider. Not only just GPA, but even test scores. Maybe your test scores aren't the most amazing thing, but I think what matters as important or around the same amount is the clubs you're in, the activities you're involved in, your passion, your essays. It's this whole picture of you that they're trying to come up with. And if something hindered you from getting a great GPA, maybe it was because you were, leading 3 clubs your senior year. They'll look at that picture and see who you are. And especially if you have passion about things outside of academics, of course, the point of college is to get an education, but they also know it's to develop skills and meet people. And just because you don't have the highest GPA doesn't mean you won't get in.
Great, thank you. The next question is about number of schools to apply to. So why don't we just kind of quickly go down the line. So how many schools do you guys recommend applying to? How many did you personally apply to?
I applied early to Harvard, so I actually only ended up applying to one. I had applications prepared for 5, again, because I love my safety. So. Yeah.
Great.
I personally applied to 11 colleges, which is too many. Don't do it. I would say 1 safety that you love, 2 or 3 reach schools, and 2 or 3 match schools.
I applied to 10, I believe, and I would definitely recommend, yeah, like 5 or 6, about the same, just to balance the range of places and levels of difficulty of getting in.
Great. All right. So I'm going to move on to, I like this question a lot. This is from Michelle. What is one piece of advice you would give your high school self about applying to college?
Trust yourself. Trust yourself. I mean, that's the biggest thing, because the thing is, I don't know what it's like at your high schools, but I went to a super competitive high school, and everyone was comparing notes on who was applying to where, and you would mention a school you like, and people would either be like, oh, I don't know if you could get in there, or like, that's such an easy school, why are you even interested in it? Just don't listen to anyone. Listen to yourself, maybe like one advisor, like one parent, someone who knows you and knows what you want, but really, it's an amazing opportunity to grow and be like, what do I want out of my college experience? So that's it. Like, trust yourself. It'll work out, and you'll be happy.
That's such an awesome answer. I've nothing to add.
Yeah, agree. I'll just take her answer.
Cool. So the next question I want to address is this one about a gap year, which I think is actually getting even more and more relevant. So is taking a gap year worth it? Do colleges look down on this? Will it hurt or, I guess, help your chances of getting into a big university? Aubrey, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So I didn't personally take a gap year. I know that the way it works for Harvard, you apply to Harvard as a senior in high school. If you get accepted, you can then tell them that you want to take a gap year. So I think that you can choose to take a gap year after you're already accepted. So I wouldn't worry about it hurting your chances of getting into a school. My best friend at school actually took a gap year and spent half of her gap year in Spain learning Spanish and the other half in Peru helping at an orphanage. Like, pretty much two of the coolest things ever. And I think that she's told me that it really helped her grow as a person, and she came into Harvard feeling much more confident about who she was, which I think is amazing. I know that I personally was worried about losing my momentum from high school. I didn't want to take a year off. I wanted to keep studying and keep going. And I think it's really about knowing what you are capable of. I do think that for me it was probably best to just keep going, but there are a lot of people that end up having to take gap years during college because they didn't take it before they came in. And so know what you need, know what you can do.
Great. So a couple people are asking questions about extracurriculars as part of your application to college. So there's two here that are pretty similar. So I'll just select one. So obviously colleges do look for extracurricular activities, but are they looking for ones that are related to your major or more well-rounded? And what extracurriculars did you guys participate in yourselves in high school?
I think there's two ways to play this, to be honest. I think you can either have a lot of extracurriculars and show that you are well-rounded. You can also do something called being well-lopsided, where you are really good and really committed to one extracurricular, which is what I did. I was a competitive swimmer in high school, and I had no time for anything else. And that was a big part of my college essay, was talking about how really committing to a single extracurricular had changed my high school experience and shaped me as a person. So I think there's no wrong way to do it. I think you just have to make sure when you're listing them that you're not doing it because it's something they want to hear or because you want to appear a certain way. I think colleges really care about quality over quantity, and maybe you have both. Maybe you did a lot and you work great at all of them, and that's amazing. But if you are only really passionate about one or two things, that's also okay. Just make sure you really convey like how much they mean to you.
I know in high school, so for example, I was involved in like the school newspaper and Key Club, like a volunteer club, and I did like a math, science, technology program. And while like they're not all related to one another, I was, I guess, more of like the well-rounded type, maybe. But I think it just depends also like where you apply, because I know when I was applying, if I applied for a journalism major at a school, if I thought I'd be interested in that, then I would talk more about my extracurricular activities that related to that. But if I was applying for like an undeclared position or just applying to a college as a whole, I would list, all of them, and I would never leave something out. It's just what you want to talk about more if they're asking about a specific skill set that you have.
Great. Okay, so there's one question here about working and actually having a job while in college, or a job or an internship. Have any of you guys held a job position or an internship during college, and how was that?
Yeah, so I've had 2 jobs most of my college experience. Since September of my freshman year, I've actually been a tour guide at Harvard. And I think that's a really great commitment. If you guys can be tour guides on your campus, do it, because it's very low time commitment. I mean, you're doing 1 to 2 hour tours, and you're basically giving a tour of your backyard. There's no commute necessary. You're learning so much about the school that you go to, so that's great. And I've done a few other things throughout. But I think that I personally was an athlete in high school. I had practice every single day, so getting a job was kind of a way to put that structure back in my life since I wasn't playing a sport here. It's so manageable. You can absolutely do it. And if anything, I think that having a job or playing a sport or doing something that's very, very time committing is actually really good because it gives you something to structure your studying around and structure your time around.
Great. There's a question here about kind of how many classes to take. So Favor has written this question. I've tried to put together a challenging schedule during my high school career. In other words, stuffing my schedule full with classes. So how many classes is too much in college?
I think it absolutely depends on your school. I know at Harvard, 4 is not only normal, but it's normal for a reason. It's not underachieving to only take 4 classes. I know people at other schools. I mean, I'm taking 5 classes right now. When I try and sort of like complain about it to people, they're like, I take 5 or 6 classes every semester, and I'm like, oh, never mind. I think it really depends on your school. I think 4 is normal. You should not feel like you are underachieving or not making the most of it if you're only taking 4. That's not a thing at all. I think 5 is a lot, but manageable. I think 6 would be absolutely pushing it, especially somewhere like Harvard.
Yeah. I think it also depends quarter versus semester, because I know I'm on quarter system, and that's like 3 or 4. But it's like, I guess, about units. So our units, I think, is like 13 to 19. So 4 classes can get you like 18 or 19 units, and that's kind of what we go by. But it really depends, because each class is a different amount of units. So you could be taking 3 classes and still have it be less, or 4 classes and it still be less units than 3 classes if they're like harder and more units.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. The next question is about Greek life. So I want to be in a sorority, but I've seen a lot of negativity towards Greek life in general. What is there to gain from being in a sorority? How positive is the experience? What kind of people will I meet? Lindsay, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So I'm in like a multi-interest sorority, so it's not the Pan-Hellenic, like the main stereotypical ones, but I have, friends who actually transferred from that into my sorority, and I think that the positives would be just like finding a group of girls who are like similar to you, or that you can ask for advice or count on, because in a big school, like, you do try and find as many people as you can to relate to or make friends with. But I have heard, there are some like things that people talk about. Maybe people are worried about like hazing or feeling uncomfortable, and I know that colleges are really trying to get away from that. My advice would probably be to just check out the rush system at your school and see what it's like, and if you like the girls there, or if it's just not for you, and maybe even like rush and pledge, which is like trying like basically to become a sister in a sorority, and at any point you don't like it, you can just not do it. It's not like you're locked in for life. I would say if you're interested, give it a try, but it's not for everyone. It's just, it's another support system to have.
Cool. All right, we have maybe time for one other question. So this one kind of touches on more of the academic aspect that we haven't talked about as much, but how do you bond with teachers when you go to a school of 3,000 plus or even more kids?
My number one recommendation for this, so I remember I did something that I think a lot of my peers didn't do, and so they were kind of surprised when they realized that I was forming connections with my professors. So I think they're like, how do you know so many professors? I'm like, you just do it. But I think the real answer to that is that you take small classes. I think a lot of people, especially their freshman year, especially at Harvard, there are like a lot of like stereotypical classes that have like 500 kids in them. The fact is, you're just not going to meet a professor that way. I think what you should do is you should look at fields you're really interested in and find like 20-person seminars, 10-person seminars if your school offers them, and just really engage in the material, and that's a great way to bond with your professor. I think another thing, though, I will acknowledge that I know that at other schools it's not easy to find classes like that. If you are in a big class, or even like if a professor you really like is taking a big class, don't not take it because you don't want to take a big class. If you are interested in bonding with a professor, the main thing you can do is go to their office hours. I had a professor in a big class that I just like went to his office hours every single week, and so even though like he couldn't see me in the audience, like when he was actually teaching, he knew who I was. And I think another great, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but I know Harvard has a program that maybe other schools might adopt as well, where the departments will fund dinners between students and faculty at restaurants, local restaurants, and departments really like meeting students. They're excited that you're there. They're excited that you want to learn. I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is to not be afraid of your professors. They're so excited to meet you, and they do this all the time.
Yeah, that's great advice. Okay, let's actually end on just one question. I know we're a little bit over time, but I think this is a great question. So how do you prepare yourself for college while you are still in high school? So obviously super relevant to all of our viewers tuning in today. And if we want to just kind of go down the line, we can start with you, Aubrey, and then Lindsay, and then Zoe, and then, yeah, we'll call it a night after that.
I think that I started finding out what I was really interested in academic-wise. I don't think that you have to know what you want to study as soon as you get to a college. I don't even think you have to know if you want social sciences or humanities or mathematics. I couldn't even remember that last, but I have taken math. But I definitely think you should try and figure out what really interests you, what captivates your attention when you're in class. I loved my American history classes, but even once I got to school, I still was like, government, history, social science, I don't know. But it meant that I was able to start exploring in depth my government classes, sociology, history, because I had an idea of what really interested me. So maybe just start finding academic classes, different subjects that really make you excited to learn.
I would say joining clubs and taking on leadership roles would really help you not only learn time management, but also just learn other skills that maybe would introduce you to things then that you might want to do in college. So by joining clubs in high school, you can kind of get more of that, not burden, but that extra experience that then when you get to college and you want to do these other things like having a job or studying abroad or, you know, being in a club there, you have that experience of juggling many things at once.
Great.
I think the best way that I prepared, Audrey, actually, I was going to say the same thing as Audrey, but I don't want to say that again because it's not as exciting for everyone. So I think my second piece of advice after knowing what you want academically is to form good relationships with your teachers, because your teachers were college students and your teachers have sent people to college and have people visit them after going to college, et cetera, et cetera. And I think talking to teachers about your academic interests is a good way to prepare yourself for the kinds of relationships you're going to have with your peers and your professors in college classes. Get used to talking about your ideas. Get used to being confident in your ideas. I think that's the best thing you can do to prepare yourself for the sort of different academic standards and rigor of college versus high school.
Awesome. All right, well, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much to Aubrey, Lindsay, and Zoe for being amazing panelists today. Seriously, I feel like I learned so much. And I'm not even in college. And also a huge thank you to McDonald's, of course, for sponsoring. And as a reminder, all of these, both of the webcast series have been recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. So please refer to this video again, share it with your friends, and good luck as you're applying to college. Good night.
Bye.
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 Bye.